can begin. I'm just trying to get a sense as to whether or not we have quorum.
You do indeed.
Commissioner Thompson and Commissioner Davey, Commissioner Coy, Commissioner Bermudez, Vice Chair Garrido. Are we at quorum? I can't. 1, 2, 3.
Yes, we have met quorum.
We've met quorum. Okay, good deal.
Commissioner Bain is here as well.
Oh, Commissioner Bain, good to see your read your name. I apologize to you. Very much apologize. So I am going to call the meeting of the Racial Justice Commission, New York City Racial Justice Commission, to order and begin with a review and vote on the November 16th and November 22nd minutes. Those minutes were sent out. I'm hoping that our commissioners have had an opportunity to review the minutes. If anybody hasn't had the opportunity and would like a minute, just let me know.
I have not. I'm doing so now.
Okay, good deal.
Madam Chair, I think it's in order to put a motion to accept the minutes first.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Forgive me. I don't know I'm still new at all of this, even though I serve on 1,001 boards. I was just asking people to review them first. Forgive me. May I have a motion to review and consider the minutes and vote to approve them? Vice Chair? And a second?
Second.
Okay.
Now we have discussion.
Are there any comments or questions or any changes that people want to recommend? Any discussion on the minutes?
As a point of information, we're talking about two separate minutes.
The November 16th minutes and the November 22nd minutes.
Thank you.
All right, hearing and none and seeing no question, no hands raised, may I have a motion to approve the minutes?
The motion was made in second. I think we
Okay,
need.
good deal. I'm catching up, Henry. Forgive me. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Good deal. Okay, the minutes have been approved. I'm noting that Commissioners Mata and Commissioners Mata and Hamilton have joined the meeting. And so I just want to make sure for the record, we have a full accounting of everyone who is in attendance. Commissioner Bain, Commissioner Mata, Commissioner Hamilton, Commissioner Bermudez, Commissioner Davey, Commissioner Thompson, Commissioner Garrido, Commissioner Coy, and myself. I don't believe that I've left off anyone. Commissioner Bermudez, I'm not sure if I called her name. I just first on, before we get into the business of the meeting, I do just want to, on behalf of the commissioners and the commission staff, convey and express our condolences to you, Commissioner Bermudez, on the passing of your father.
Thank you.
So today's meeting is, the purpose of today's meeting is to continue to review and discuss our consolidated proposals so that we can move forward with a presentation of a resolution for vote at the upcoming December 9th meeting. We have, since our last full meeting, had several smaller conversations with commissioners to hear additional thoughts and ideas, specific concerns, to further develop the proposals that have been put on the table. And we will continue to do the same in this conversation with the aim of moving forward a resolution to vote on the proposals at the upcoming December 9th meeting. So what we're going to do now is to have our executive director, Anisha Venkatraman, and the policy director, our policy director, Jimmy Pan, lead us through the latest iteration of the proposals What they'll do is point out the progress that we've made since our last meeting. And what we'll do is we'll discuss each proposal one by one, and then go from there. So we've got about an hour and hour and a half before us, and that's what we plan to do today. So before we do this, I just want to say a little bit about the proposals themselves. We've been at this work, as you well know, since March, and we knew when we sat down as a commission to look at and carefully examine the charter, that our work was essentially a beginning. We did not expect that we could, in the period of time that we have, completely rewrite the charter to make sure that we were addressing every element of like city law and policy and practice to upend racism and intersectional inequities. But we wanted to take that first very critical step to do the foundational work. And it's my great sense and confidence that we've done just that, with all of the commissioners working alongside the staff towards that aim, towards that objective. There, as we all know, is a window that we have at this moment. And I fervently believe, and I believe other commissioners do as well, that if we do not take advantage of this window where the nation and the city are looking at how racism continues to pervade every aspect, every pillar of our society, and disadvantage BIPOC persons and communities. If we don't step into this moment and try to act to at least begin to undo the structures that are in place, then we may lose the moment, because the momentum, these windows don't stay open for long. And we're just trying to jump in and make sure that we can do what needs to be done, foundationally speaking. We've heard from community members, we've heard from thought leaders around the country about how structural racism is operating in cities and across the nation. And we've heard a lot about the harmful inequities in accountability, marginalization, wealth building, neighborhoods, and more on persons of color. And what we've done as a charter commission is committed ourselves to trying to make a change for the people and the children and for generations to come here in New York City. So we've done the work, working with staff, some of us commissioners and working with staff. We've read the charter. We've engaged in countless conversations. We've listened to New Yorkers. We've grasped structural change at its root, structural racism, I should say, at its root. And with these proposals, what we're aiming to do is to begin the process of shattering structural racism as calcified in the foundation of our city charter. So what I'm confident about is that the proposals that have been put forth will essentially, we're going to put them to New York City voters. We believe that what these proposals will do is strengthen the work that that has begun with the Task Force for Racial Inclusion and Equity, but go deeper than program and policy. We're hoping and believing, based on the conversations we've had with thought leaders from around the country, that our work is not only going to strengthen efforts aimed at undoing racism and advancing equity here in New York City, but around the nation. We've heard from many thought leaders that what we're putting forward can really begin to create a spark and seed work around the country. And so that inspires me. If we can, if that's what we accomplish, then we will have done some good, not just for New Yorkers, but for people across the nation. Let me say a few words before we jump into the proposals about the next steps. I mentioned a few minutes ago that we're going to have a meeting on December 9th. A calendar notification has been sent to the board members. The aim is that as many of us as possible will attend in person. And I believe that meeting will be at the Henry Street Settlement House. Is that correct? So you have that information. Initially shaking her head. At that December 9th meeting, we're going to vote on the proposal concepts. And then the staff will begin drafting these concepts into final ballot language. Then we will come back together. Thinking is December 16th when we will vote on the final report that will incorporate these ballot measures. Additionally, we're going to be bringing forth recommendations, a racial justice roadmap, recommendations that the commission will support, but does not have to vote on in the December 9th meeting. This racial justice roadmap will speak to actions, issues, initiatives that we believe should be undertaken, but they fall outside of charter revision work. They fall outside of the commission's ability to affect change. And so the Charter Revision Commission will advance these recommendations. They'll appear in this racial justice roadmap inside of the final report. And the aim is for them to continue to build upon the work that we have done. What we're going to do today is just take a few minutes to discuss. I shouldn't say today, but on the 16th, we'll give you a highlight. But we will discuss in greater detail at the next meeting after we vote what these recommendations look like. But we'll give you a little a preview of them. So just want to be clear. December 9th is a vote on the resolution to take these proposals and convert them into ballot language. On the 16th, we'll vote on the final ballot proposals, the ballot language, and we'll adopt the final report. But December 9th is critically important because that's when we vote forward and we vote out what we're actually going to convert into final ballot measures. December 16th will be our final commission meeting, unless the commission decides to keep meeting next year. But we will have done the main, we will have completed the main act, if you will, of our work. So again, today we're going to focus on the proposals that we anticipate will advance as charter revision proposals and ballot measures. And our aim is to have a conversation today to continue to dialogue and deliberate these specific proposals. So that having been said, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Anusha and to Jimmy.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Chair. We are so excited to share with you today the most recent thinking of the commission and the commission staff, reflecting input received at the last meeting, input received from commissioners in the interim. For members of the public who are following along with us, you can find a copy of this deck on our website. If you go under events and then click on the page for this meeting, in addition to what you're seeing on the screen. So this summary deck lays out our most recent thinking. It contains the high level points on each proposal that we are thinking of advancing. Commissioners do have further specifics on each proposal that you have received in your email. So feel free to bring up information that is in those, but members of the public will be able to follow along using the deck. We'll go through each proposal and highlight some of the updates since we last met and discussed them. Then we'll spend some time discussing each proposal as we go through it, and then have some time at the end for broader discussion. So I think we can go on to the next slide here. So what we see here is a revised organization of the three proposals that we are putting forward to you for advancing. One is adding a preamble to the New York City Charter. Two is advancing equity and accountability through creation of a racial equity office and a citywide equity plan, along with a racial equity commission. Three is creating a new measurement of the true cost of living. Next slide. As a reminder, as we've been thinking through how to take the various ideas of commissioners, of what has been shared from the public, and distill them down into a finite number of proposals, we've been guided by these principles of aspiration, or intent or values, action, what can we affect in terms of foundations for the future, and actions that we can propel forward, And 3, accountability. What structures are we putting in place for communities and New Yorkers to hold the city accountable to racial equity goals and priorities? Next slide. So on the preamble, you won't see significant changes here. The preamble, we still anticipate to create a strong aspirational vision for our city, to contain a land acknowledgement of the displacement of the original Lenape people, an acknowledgement of historical harms and wrongs, including those that continue to today, expressing an intent to reimagine our city's foundations and our future in the vision of justice and equity, and with the goal of repairing past and continuing harms, and that the preamble will serve to guide the interpretation of the New York City Charter in its totality, but does not create a private right of action. So at this point, I think we could pause at each proposal and see if there are questions, comments, feedback. Perhaps not too much on this one since it hasn't changed significantly. And Jimmy, our chair, feel free to highlight anything I may have missed.
Are there any, I can't think of anything that you've missed. Are there any questions or comments concerning the preamble?
Feel free to express support and excitement as well, especially for New Yorkers tuning in.
And keep in mind that this would pertain to the entirety of the charter, not just the specific proposals that we're putting forth.
Madam Chair, if I may, I
Please.
think it's incredible that in a city with the rich history of New York, at the epicenter of many of the historical endeavors that have driven, not, as you said, not only the state, but the nation, that the Constitution of our city doesn't have a preamble. I think it's one of the most revealing things that I have ever seen, because every general constitution, including our own US Constitution, has to have some guiding principles and a vision for values. And so I think that this is something that I'm proud of, the work that has been done to get to a point where we not only recognize that a preamble is needed, but that there's one that recognizes some of the wrongs in the past historically and provides us a guideline for us to move forward as a city in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, and I fully concur and very much appreciate your remarks, Vice Chair. Fully concur. Are there other thoughts concerning this, the preamble? All right, I'm going to take that as a good sign.
Right.
That everybody
too.
has a good sense of this, and we're going to keep moving.
Thank you so much. We can go on to the next slide. So what we're envisioning as the second question on the ballot has a few different components. One is the component of creating a new Office of Racial Equity led by a Chief Equity Officer. This Chief Equity Officer would be an agency head level or higher, such as a deputy mayor. They would have the responsibility, along with the office, to work with the agency to create their equity plans and the citywide racial equity strategies and goals that would roll up into a biennial citywide equity plan that the mayor is ultimately responsible for. This office would provide technical assistance to agencies, help to build up the capacity of the city to do equity work effectively, help agencies that may face challenges, as well as house and support a permanent and codified task force on racial inclusion and equity, which was begun under this administration. They would have additional responsibilities and powers in terms of building out a citywide access design program, improving access for folks across the city, including in service design, plain language, language justice. They would have the ability to work alongside other relevant agencies in promulgating rules relating to occupational segregation, wage segregation, equitable hiring and promotion, something we know is very important to many city workers. They would be responsible for coordinating collection, reporting of data, including creating standards for the disaggregation of data related to equity. And last, but certainly not least importantly, they would be supporting and pushing all agencies in prioritizing anti-marginalization work, including further work around wage and occupational segregation, access, limiting the use of criminal history and background checks, identifying alternatives to punitive enforcement, and ensuring that resources are distributed within and across neighborhoods to the places where there's the greatest need and deepest disparity. I think we can go through all of number 2 in totality and then come back to it for discussion. So you can go to the next slide. Some more details on the citywide equity plan. This hasn't changed significantly since you last saw it. The plan would still include those strategic goals and programs, both citywide and agency specific, include indicators and data that will help us track disparities. We've made sure to make sure that this includes disaggregated data, since that was important to a number of commissioners, that there would be some required components, including those mentioned on the previous slide under the responsibilities of the office. We've also subsequently thought through the frequency of the plan. It seems that most folks are good with issuing the plan every other year. The timing of the plan would align with the city's budget process, and we would anticipate that the first plan would be completed in 2024. If this proposal is passed, giving the next administration some time to set up the office, figure out the components of the plan, and then release it in early 2024. And I think we can go to the next slide.
And if I may just quickly jump in there and just to expound a little bit upon the timeline. We have to keep in mind that these proposals will not be voted on until the November 2022 election. And so they would not, come into effect if approved by the voters until essentially 2023. And that's why we're giving the administration then another year to begin to build out the plan,
Absolutely. That's a helpful clarification. You'll notice one thing that is removed here is in aligning the budget with the equity plan, there had previously been an idea around the plan of the budget not being enacted until the plan is approved by the commission. Based on your input, we've removed that, but still are coordinating the process so that as budget decisions are being made, the equity plan is being put together and those critical decisions are made in tandem. Next slide. So the last component of this question and this proposal is the Racial Equity Commission. This is critically important. This is where we're providing both outside insight and expertise as well as community input. As some updates, we envision this to be a 15-member commission led by chair who is independent and supported by full-time staff. Commissioner appointments will be split among various elected officials, including the mayor, city council, comptroller, public advocate, somewhat similar to CCRB structure. The commission would have a very important role to play, not only in providing input and providing some oversight over the equity planning process, but they would also have the ability to propose priorities from the communities that they represent, and indicators that could be considered in the development of the racial equity plans. There would be space for them to advocate for alignment between equity goals and the budget. They would review the progress reports, those indicators, performance data, and they would have a range of accountability roles, ranging from collaboration and partnership, helping agencies to improve their work, to more proactive accountability powers to track agency compliance, and more reactive powers where they could receive complaints from the public. You'll notice one significant change here based on input that we have received. There's no longer a racial equity watchdog proposal as part of a component of this proposal, but we have thought through what are the powers of the watchdog that serves some accountability function that could be integrated into the commission in a meaningful way, recognizing that there should be a range of accountability powers from the more friendly to the less friendly. So I think that's the last slide for proposal number 2. So at this point, we can open it up to questions and discussion on this multi-pronged proposal. And I do see a raised hand from Commissioner Daniel Favors.
It appears that she's still on mute. She may not be aware, but she did ask in the chat. Okay. Are you with us?
There we go.
Commissioner?
Sorry for that. Yes, are you able to hear me?
Yes, we are able to hear you.
Okay, my apologies for putting that in the chat. I know that our preference is to not do that, but I have been in default Zoom protocol mode all week, so my apologies for that. In light of the fact that the check on the budget has been removed as one of the accountability measures, was there anything put there in place to help ensure that the budget is aligned beyond what has already been discussed in terms of accountability provisions?
Yes. Oh, I can answer that, and our chair can add as well. So in aligning the timeline, we seek to ensure that the planning for equity, the planning for how money is spent, is happening at the same time by the same people. We also have some specific roles for the commission. So the commission would review and report on, do they see the equity goals? Do they see the stated priorities from the equity plan show up in the budget, especially in what they see in the preliminary budget and then in the executive budget before it moves towards adoption. The other important point on the budget is that we would have places where OMB or city planning in regards to the 10-year capital strategy would have to state in the narrative of the budget where the equity priorities show up in the budget itself. Working through the precise details of the timing of that, but that is the current thinking. And I invite our chair and Jimmy to add to that if you like.
You've covered it in detail. I think we're good. Jimmy, would you like to add anything?
I would say that what we're contemplating here would set a foundation for future work. We've talked about different ways to score the budget and to really more closely integrate some of this thinking into the city's processes. So I think what we're putting in place here is allowing for a ramp up time for future implementation to take to the very next level, I think, in ways that we've discussed here in the commission.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Commissioner Hamilton?
Yes, I'm wondering if if we have in the proposals anywhere explicit race equity scoring, either in relative or absolute sense, beyond just narrative? Is that possible or something we could think about as it relates to both budgets and or proposed policies?
Looking at the commission, having the commission not authority and capacity to do that, making that one of their undertakings. I think we can.
And
Or
or
the commission side or elsewhere.
and or have OMB do it or some other scoring agency within.
Okay. Jimmy, Nisha, your thoughts on that?
To respond to that, we've heard a lot of input on both sides of the value of this. And I think Jimmy's comment before about creating a foundation for further work to be done is right on. We're not currently contemplating including it as a requirement, but as we get further into recommendations, we may put forward for non-charter changes that may be the appropriate place, since there would need to be a significant amount of work done for that to be ready to move ahead. Jimmy, would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think that's, again, trying to address some of the concerns that commissioners had raised about timeline and capacity.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll state that I'm an advocate for the commission and or in office within city government being charged with that responsibility as one of our recommendations.
Okay, duly noted. So we will give that some further consideration. Is there any other comment from any other commissioners on this point? Okay, thank you, Commissioner Hamilton. We will take that under further consideration and see what we can do. Let's keep going.
Wonderful. So making good progress, we can move on to the next slide. So true cost of living. This is a proposal that we've heard very positive input from commissioners on. It has not changed significantly since the last time you saw it. This would still entail the requirement of the city to develop and release a new additional standard reflecting the cost of living in New York City, thereby rethinking the way that we understand poverty, the ways that we understand service levels and the level of support that New Yorkers, individuals, and families need in the city. This new standard would be reported in the citywide equity plan, as well as when the city reports on poverty rates, including in the charter mandated social indicators report and reflected or referenced in the mayor's management report. So I think we can pause here and see if there are questions and comments on this proposal. Words of support, even?
This is Commissioner Bain. I'm very excited about this. And similar to what was stated by our chair earlier, we're in New York City, historically known for setting standards and just increasing awareness and action around these issues. I think this is a phenomenal proposal in itself. True cost of living, I'm a fan.
Wonderful. So glad. So glad that we're on board with this one, all of them, critically important. So we've gotten through the first three, the three proposals. And Anisha, would you like to take us to the next slide?
Absolutely. So on the next slide, you will see what was previously included as a proposal for charter revision. You'll see it's no longer a proposal, but we didn't want it to drop off or leave without discussion, especially because this set of recommendations include many issues that we've heard significantly from communities, from advocates and other partners on, including the ways that we can improve accountability within the city, and especially within the criminal legal system and the ways in which we could potentially impact the lives of those that are justice involved. So as a way of reminder, what this previous proposal, now a recommendation for discussion, entailed is that we would recommend enabling the Board of Correction to have greater powers in bringing administrative action against the Department of Correction. This could be at oath or it could be in another venue. Second, strengthening of CCRB. We would envision expanding its jurisdiction, especially to include self-initiated investigations, but particularly looking at systemic patterns of misconduct and include recommendations for systemic change, which is something that CCRB cannot do right now. On CCHR, the City Commission on Human Rights, we would envision recommending that there be a minimum size or secure budget to CCHR to ensure that they can continue to do their work as meaningfully as possible under, many future administrations. And we've also thought through some changes that we can make to improve the power of EEPC. Employment, oh my gosh, I'm forgetting exactly what it stands for. Equal Employment Practices Commission, which would give them explicit jurisdiction over non-mayoral entities, allow them to fill vacancies on their board, and also potentially address a budget for them. Lastly, what we've heard from many oversight entities is that they don't always have the ability to ask for and receive access to data records to inform their own work, inform their own investigations and decision-making, and that they should have the power to require the agency that they oversee to either provide data privately to them or publish data publicly. So this is a set of important ideas, certainly doesn't address everything that we heard about in the criminal justice and the criminal legal system reform realm, but were ideas that were considered, have been discussed at previous meetings, and we wanted to make sure we present the opportunity for you to discuss them before we make a final decision on what to do with these. Chair, would you like to add anything?
Yes, so I want to jump in here and say that I appreciate what's been put forward here with respect to these specific recommendations for each of these government entities. I am one who is concerned that while they begin to address critical issues and concerns in these respective agencies or offices, they do not go, they're not comprehensive. They are not, we have not done an exhaustive review and, to be certain that what we're putting forth is reflective of what is necessary to begin to foundationally dismantle structural racism. And my concern is that we should not, and this is borrowing on some of what Commissioner Hamilton has talked about in other meetings, put some things out without having done a more thorough, rigorous review. The staff have done a tremendous job. This is not at all a reflection on their work. It's rather a reflection of all the work that that has been done and where we have really leaned in and really been able to develop some robust proposals. My thinking personally is that with each and every one of these agencies and the issues that are in abundance for any one of these agencies, there could be a charter revision commission centered solely on each one of them. And so I don't want to come up short on this. And so, personally, I think the most appropriate thing to do is to recommend that they be given full consideration, a firm recommendation in the coming administration, possibly in another charter revision commission. But I just don't think that they're where they need to be at this particular point. Looks like Commissioner Thompson has come off, come on to camera or taking his mute off. I don't know if you want to jump in here.
Yes. I think what the items 1 through 3 do is establish a process for sustained effort, review, scrutiny, change throughout city government. And while it's true, someone might say, well, you didn't reform the police department, you didn't reform the corrections department. Others will say, well, you didn't reform housing, HPD and NYCHA, and you didn't reform workforce and, economic development. All of that's true. I mean, there are 50 agencies and as the chair just said, I fully agree that each one of these things could easily occupy a charter revision commission like ours for a whole year, easily. And so I think what we're doing is putting into place something unprecedented, which is basically saying, we're going to set up a structure to do the work. It's not going to be a quick fix. We're going to dig into these issues, and racial justice is not going to disappear. And I think that's realistic and powerful. I do think if we do a sort of wave a hand at a number of these issues, we'll also invite criticism that, there's a lot more that needs to be done if we're going to do serious reform at any one of these agencies. So I do think this is the correct approach.
Thank you, Commissioner Thompson. Commissioner Bermudez.
I mean, I essentially agree with what both you and Commissioner Thompson have said. At the same time, I do think that for purposes of our, I suppose, credibility with the public, that we find a mechanism by which to make a certain statement about what you both just said, in terms of, which I know, it's encompassed in the limit, everything we've put out, we've said there's limitations to this. Obviously, it's a short term, entity trying to tackle, decades old, structural, racism. And so, but I think we need to make a statement about the fact that all the agencies, all 50 agencies, play a hand in this, and there could be, I'm saying, like, there could be, commissions for each of the life areas that the agencies, sort of influence or are purported to serve, right? And that, I don't know, that some way of addressing this particular shortcoming of what we're doing, because it was so the people who organized, as Commissioner Daniel Favors repeatedly said, and we noted repeatedly also, the people with the Public Land Trust, and it may be that it's not something we can take on right now, et cetera, but the fact that they came and it was their passion, and and they were like raising very important issues, I just don't want it to go unaddressed. I don't know. I don't have the solution. I don't know how the best way of doing that is, but
Point so well taken. And one of the things that we've talked about is that the final report itself needs to speak to these very issues. What we were able to do, what we did not do, and essentially, in some ways, like give voice to and validate what we heard, and the importance of taking it up. So we're going to try to do it through that. Commissioner Hamilton.
I mean, I certainly hear the concerns of my fellow commissioners, and they are extremely valid. But there very well may be some pathways for some specificity about certain agencies, because there are some that the issue of racial justice and equity is more beholden on, or there might be some specific thing that we can at least put forth as a recommendation. For example, the CCRB, if it is clear that that commission is limited in its ability to have oversight, and there's something specific for which we can recommend, perhaps we should consider pursuing it.
Fair point. Are there others?
I think about the, sorry, I don't know if I'm muted or unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Thank you.
All right. So the preamble keeps coming to mind, and what our vice chair said about how important and necessary it is in this conversation. I think our approach has to be noted here as well. And I think the way that we approached and are approaching even these proposals on a macro level is significant, because we're essentially modeling how empathetic and thoughtfully you have to look at the structural racism that we're fighting against. So I think in our report documenting the way that we fought through some of these ideas and teased out others, and that's on the macro. On the micro, thinking about what Commissioner Hamilton was speaking on, like how specifically can we put things in place that really address and get to the crux and the core that race plays in the discrimination that undermines everything that New York stands for. So I see, again, the preamble as a very important part on the macro. And I'm just grappling with some of the specificities and ways in which, very specific ways that we can demonstrate how one should go into this work, this very challenging work of unlearning, undoing racist practices.
Very helpful. Thank you. Others on this?
Well, I put my hand up again.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I definitely I keep thinking back to what Commissioner Bain said a couple of sessions ago, which was the devil's in the details. And I kind of feel like we could go and put in a long list of specific things affecting a bunch of different issues, but not really dive deep into any of them. And I personally think that would be a mistake at this point. And, just to be honest, like every week I kind of feel like a different issue is the key issue. And it's just because they're all so important. So I just read a report from the New School by an economist, James Parrott, that almost 1 in 4 people unemployed due to the pandemic, still unemployed due to the pandemic, in the entire United States, 1 in 4 are in New York City. And overwhelmingly, they're people of color. And I was really blown away by that. And I'm like, oh my God, that's the issue. We gotta like really get on top of. But then, another week it's housing and homelessness. And I just think we could make a lot of arguments about, all of this is important and that item. But I just feel like putting in place a structure so that we can really, on the hard many years that this work goes on and continues and deepens, I think that's our contribution. I know I said that before. I just want to say it again. I think we're dealing with a lot of really important issues. not just one or two.
Thank you. Commissioner Mata?
Hi, everyone. Sorry for the background noise. I'm still in the office, but I am, obviously I've been part of this entire process, and I really have seen how everyone here has contributed one way or the other. We all have different backgrounds, and I know we're not going to come to a solution. And I think that was one of the biggest concerns, right? When I was asked to be on the commission, I was excited, but I know I did say this in the beginning, and I do remember this specifically. I was like, we're not going to come with, like, we're not going to be able to fix racism, right? And I think but we could create a platform. And I think, and I usually talk about more like on the organizing side. I've always been like involved in marches and protests and, in organizing the community, but never been on this side. So it was like very different. This has been like a new experience for me, but it has been an experience where I've seen that this is where the work that I have been doing on the ground, but the work of many activists have been doing that have been showing up, for example, in these public hearings, they're now being brought into this platform. Like that's the other step to advocacy, right? And I think what we're doing here, helping them create that platform, is going to be a stepping stone. It's going to be a vehicle for them to continue on their advocacy to another level. So I think messaging it that way, that will be very helpful, because it took me a while to understand. And I know I from a personal level, I think I've developed that growth. When at first I was like, yeah, we should go and demand this. But then I forgot who it was. I think it was Melanie or somebody else that told me, she's like, well, you're a commissioner today, and today you're listening. And no, I don't know if it was Melanie. It was somebody that told me that, like, you need to step back, that you're listening today. You need to listen to the issue. And I think that was a moment when I realized, I was like, this is a whole level of advocacy. And this is where we are at right now. And I think we are creating that layout for the next commission or the next generation, the next advocates. I think that would be very important to message to in a way to let them know and message this, but as well, the preamble is very important. I know in the beginning, I've also said this, that it's very important that the preamble, and I think Kay Bain also said it, like that we set the tone in the message of where New York City stands, and that, and I always bring immigration because that's very personal to me, that, in somewhere or the other, that immigrants themselves feel that New York City also represents them. And I know everyone here has their own specific issue, and I know they also want to make sure that their community is being presented. So the preamble is gonna have a lot of meaning for many.
Appreciate all that you've said. Very much appreciate what you said. Commissioner Hamilton, I saw your hand go up, but then I think you took it down. I just want to be certain.
That's correct.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure that I captured that. Are there others who'd like to comment at this point? So having heard, Commissioner Bermudez, did you want to? Okay, good deal. Commissioner Hamilton.
I just want to see, is it appropriate to talk about other things now? I guess that's the.
Certainly, I'm just going to wrap this up and just thank everyone for the comments that they've made as we reviewed the 3 proposals and this 4th recommendation. And we've heard the thoughts that have been put forward, both centering on how to incorporate the intent and the desire in the final report. Make sure that the preamble really speaks to these concerns. And then thirdly, Commissioner Hamilton, just taking a look to see if there's anything that we can do. And so hearing all of that, very much appreciate what has been presented. And now we'll turn back to you, Commissioner Hamilton, if there are other thoughts that you want to put on the table.
Yeah, I guess there's a few more things that I wonder if we can have for inclusion, or might have been in other iterations. One is the audits, to proactively go out and detect discrimination. to make it a clear value that we won't rely strictly on discrimination claims, but to routinely by both clerical, but as well as literally sending out actors or testing systems with both in the city's production, services, and employment as to equitable and fair inclusion, as well as those people that contract with the city. That is an item I hope we can get back in the document. I think it's critical. Then a couple other suggestions is that some of the work of the I forget what we're calling it, but I guess it's the Equity Council. I forget what it's being called. Forgive me on that, but that they have a charge to regulate the ways in which data is utilized in general. So we have information in there on data, but we know going forward that information and data is probably going to be a fault line, especially as our economy shifts in that direction. And I think we need to be proactive in that domain as well. That committee is charged with some regulatory power. And then the final thing I'll say is a suggestion that, again, with regards to the goal of accountability, that we keep in mind that the equity scoring in some way coincides with elections so that there can be some political accountability to how well the city's doing. And then, I just want to say also to my commissioners, definitely grateful for all this work and to be with you. But I also want to emphasize that, at least from my perspective, we certainly knew that we couldn't solve racism. And I think that we all in good faith have, and hopefully will still continue, and we still have a long way to go. We do have a heavy responsibility on us. And even though we might not solve racism, it's an ongoing thing. We have a fiduciary responsibility to make sure that we do and have done our very, very best.
Agreed. Thank you. And so we've noted the suggestions that you put forward, and what I will do is make sure that we work with the staff to see what can be done to incorporate what you've put forward. I do understand that there's a follow-up conversation to be had with you, Commissioner Hamilton, so we'll delve more deeply into these issues and the suggestions. Very much appreciated. Are there other thoughts, comments? I don't want to put any commissioners on the spot, but there may be a couple who we haven't heard from, and just want to give you an opportunity if you'd like to say a word or two.
Madam Chair, I just thank the commissioners and the staff for the level of commitment and energy, creativity, and imagination that everyone has contributed to the development of this document. I recognize that, as I think Commissioner Hamilton said and some others, we would have loved to have been able to get rid of structural racism in New York City by virtue of this project, but that, while a lofty goal, is one that I think most of us will be working on for the rest of our lives. I do want to recognize that in any healthy democracy, change is more incremental than any of us would actually wish. But it's important to recognize that incremental change is still change. And it's not a resting place. It's just, it's a place where we can stake a claim now and then continue on to do the work that's before us. Final thing I would say is that if we got nothing else out of this document except the Equity Office and the Equity Commission, I'd be totally satisfied, because and if we get that approved by the voters, I'd be totally satisfied, because what it does, it puts in place at least an accountability structure when it comes to racial equity and racial justice in New York. And it's one that we can work with, improve upon, hold accountable as well, to see that the city, at least, and how it does business in all of the aspects with this, what do we have, $100 billion budget, and everything else that we do, strives to exercise racial equity in the many dimensions of this city and its structure. And so if we could get those two pieces passed, we'll, in addition to the others, but those two pieces, I think will leave the people come after us a pretty valuable legacy, and then they can work on improving it. And again, I'll use the CCRB as an example. David Dinkins, 30 years ago, 32 years, maybe a little bit longer now, gave us the current CCRB. And perhaps with the exception of the Giuliani administration, successive administrations have worked to strengthen it. And I think this mayor, city council, and state legislature have done more in the last 3 years than probably has been done in a long time to really strengthen the agency. That particular agency, I think the same thing could be said for what we're putting forth now. It's a great start. It's an excellent legacy. And I think it'll be agencies of government that our successors can continue to work on and improve. But it's a phenomenal and unprecedented start. And if we can get it approved, we will have made great strides.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Very much appreciate those words. And I'm sure the staff do as well, and all the commissioners. Commissioner Coy?
No, I want to second that, what Commissioner David just said, because I feel, very proud actually being on the commission and then able to go through the process, together with you all in terms of, for us to be able to get to this point. I think these, the proposed, language on the ballot and then the work that we've done behind it, I think it's really going to move the city forward. And I just want to also compliment the chair providing the leadership to kind of facilitate, allowing us, to be able to, put forth our perspectives and then share our thoughts and experiences. And so I think that's something that I just want to, everybody to recognize, not only the commissioners, but the staff, but then also the people in the city who's actually watching this to appreciate the process, I think. And lastly, I just want to say that the preamble really is something that I feel is so significant because it really recognizes, our forefathers who actually helped, build this city and then continue to toil, to improve it and then create a foundation for us today. So I just really want to say that that's really critical and important for me, and then I think for the community that I serve, and then I think for the people of New York, that they should feel proud, and then I'm pretty confident that we do spend the time the coming year to really talk about it to the public and to make sure that they come out and then to vote to approve these initiatives. That I think we would have done a tremendous job, and so again, I just want to say that, and we should feel very proud, I think, so thank you.
Commissioner Coy, thank you. I echo the sentiments that have been expressed by just about everybody here on all of these issues. We have not, we've done some very good work, and I believe that we have really begun to lay a very necessary foundation. There's always more to be done, but we have to begin somewhere. And I think we can feel confident that we are laying a new foundation that will help to move the needle in significant manner. I do see that Commissioner Daniel Favors has her hand up, and so we'll go to Commissioner Daniel Favors.
So I want to just say, express my thanks as well for the staff and the team, and for my fellow commissioners who have really engaged in spirited discussion about these issues. I just think it's important, and I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but I do want to have a realistic framing of what happens for all who are watching and listening to this conversation, because what must absolutely happen if we are serious about seeing these provisions actually implemented in a meaningful way that creates a floor from which a body of racial justice can be erected, it is going to be vitally necessary that our fellow New Yorkers fight for these initiatives, come out and vote for these initiatives. They do no one any good at all if they simply are not passed, or if even upon passage, they are not vigorously defended and advocated on behalf of and used as a point of expansion. This is a very beginning. It is certainly nowhere near to the end. I think a point that has been wonderfully made and expressed by a variety of my fellow commissioners. But this is really an opportunity for New Yorkers to take this moment, this brief aperture, this opening of a sliver of hope within the very firmly erected building of institutionalized white supremacy, to move our city forward in a way that perhaps is in and of itself revolutionary in potential. But potential is nothing if it is not tapped. And so I'm hopeful that, the millions of folks who we saw come out last summer, I'm hopeful, not last summer, 2 summers ago now, see how the time changes. I'm hopeful that in light of the increased repression that we are seeing sweeping this nation, and from which our state is not exempt, that this can be used as a springboard for activists, organizers, people who care about the future of this city and securing a future going to be racially just. I am hopeful that this will be an opportunity and a tool that they will be able to use, and that we will be able to use to push that agenda forward, and to ensure that this thing we all know can happen actually has a shot, and that this just doesn't become a moment in history when there was potential that could have been, but that
You went on mute, and we were all like just leaning in. and
I was
listening
done.
to
I was
every-
done. That was it.
So
we
very
have-
much appreciate all that you said. And I'll go to Commissioner Thompson, and then if there are no other comments, then we'll close out the meeting. Commissioner Thompson?
Well, thanks. I just wanted to say I don't remember if we added anything to the preamble that kind of reflects what Commissioner Cui said. Like, we are building on a very long and powerful legacy fighting for racial justice and inclusion in this city. I don't know if, and maybe that's there, but I think that's really important to say.
Okay.
I mean, we think about Ella Baker, think about
Mhm.
Malcolm X, think about,
Mhm.
James Baldwin,
Yeah.
so many people. So that was one. I also wanted to just build on what Commissioner Favors and Commissioner Yesenia Amata said, and I just think this should be a call to action. And I also think there's joy in actually creating from our own work and solidarity and imagination together what an equitable and just city looks like and acts like. I worked in a planning and architecture department for 20 years, and I started going around all over the country asking designers and architecture departments, what does a just and equitable democratic city look like physically? How would you design it? What are the principles for designing such a city? And do you know what? Not a single answer, nor is there a book on how to do that, nor is there an article on how to do that. And none of us has ever seen it before. It's never existed before. So what we are calling for is something new to be recreated from us, from our people, from our communities, from our working together. I think that's a joyous enterprise. And that is what doing these equity plans will consist of in area after area, because we haven't seen it anywhere in this country. We have to construct it. And so anyway, I just think that's a call to action. As Yesenia said, this is a platform for activists, leaders, dreamers, hard workers to actually use. and have their voices heard and felt. And so if there's some way to have that spirit in there and how we message this, I think it will excite people. And it's not just holding people accountable is really important, but we also have to create something to hold people accountable to. And that itself is a big call to action.
Indeed, indeed. I will have more to say at our upcoming meeting about what this experience has been for me and what I believe and feel confident we have done together, learning from, leaning in, listening to, learning from the community. I feel very proud of what the staff and the commissioners have set out to do and what we have done. Rome wasn't built in a day, as they say, and we know that racism will not be taken down in just one with one shot, with one aim. So more work to be done, but a very good beginning. So our next meeting will be December 9th, and as I have said at the outset, at that meeting we will vote on the resolution to move these proposals into ballot measures. And it'll be the finalization of the ballot proposals. There will be some work that continues between now and then. You all have raised points for us to further consider, and we're going to do just that. We'll let you know at the December 9th meeting if there has been change to the proposals as they have been, that varies from how they've been presented this evening. So we will present on the 9th the resolution. We would like as many persons as possible to be in person. We think it's very important that if you can be there, that you are there. We do understand if you're not, but we would very much appreciate you being there. And then we'll also present and discuss the racial justice roadmap that will be in the final report. And then December 16th, we're going to meet again in person to vote to adopt the final report. And December 17th, the staff will submit the final report to the city clerk. So it's hard to believe that we're here. I'm looking at this like it's a big old Christmas gift, holiday gift. I celebrate Christmas, and that's how I'm thinking about it. I think that Commissioner Hamilton wants to make another point.
Well, Madam Chair, just a question about process. We will vote on the final report before seeing it. Is that, I guess.
The way this,
yes.
Executive Director Venkatraman, would you just kind of walk him through how that?
Absolutely. So speaking to the resolution first, you should receive the resolution shortly as a draft. So you have some time to review before the 9th. That's where the concept and the substance of the proposals is as we're working on the final report. You will have a chance to review the final report both as an earlier draft and as a later near final draft, recognizing that this is all a quick turnaround. This is all, not necessarily the ideal amount of time for review. So thank you for your patience, but you will receive them in advance. You will not be asked to vote on something you haven't seen.
Thank you.
Thank you. We do ask that everybody just pay close attention to your charter emails over the course of the coming days, because you will receive the resolution and we want you to review it in advance. And if you have any comments or questions in advance, you can also then email back to Anusha your thoughts on that. We, let's see, what else do I need to let you all know? I told you about the next commission meeting, and I think that's it. So again, thank you all for all the time that you've given, and really appreciate everybody just coming together and doing this very critical work. You all have volunteered your time, and you've given much attention to this work. And so we can't thank you enough. And we're in the home stretch. And thank you to the staff. I would say have a good weekend, staff. I know you're going to have a productive.
We're going to be working every day through the 16th. So
I'm not going to call it a good weekend.
We'll take some rest after that.
Absolutely, absolutely. There being no further business, the meeting, this meeting is adjourned.